This is the crown jewel, Mr. Good as Gold. This is Connor Hopkins.
I am Eric S. Knight.
And I'm a league champion.
And we are the chosen prodigal sons, and this is the Shotgun Wrestling Radio podcast.
What's up, everybody? It's Leon King here, of course, the baddest of the baddest, and you are now listening to Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
This is Gavin Parker, and you're listening to Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
This is the mechanic Big Beasley, and you are listening to Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
This is your deathmatch daddy, Bo Gott, and you're watching Shotgun Wrestling Radio.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Shotgun Wrestling Radio. I'm your host, Zach Takis, and we are going into a great weekend here for Midwest Pro Wrestling in Iowa. We've had a lot of shows this month. I think there was a different promotion running a show every week this month in Iowa, which is pretty damn cool. And this week we got the big Rugged Mania show in Marshalltown, Iowa for Rugged Pro Wrestling. And the man that is joining me to help preview this show with me here and talk a little bit about his time in the wonderful world of professional wrestling is the deathmatch daddy himself, the one and only Mr. Bo Gott. Bo, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, Zach. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. It's awesome to talk to you. It's been quite some time since I've seen you. So when I saw you got announced with an awesome matchup against Steve Manders coming up here this Saturday, I'm like, Bo would be a good person to get on the show because both of you two both love those hardcore style death matches, and I can only imagine the kind of stuff you're going to throw down here this coming week.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like a hardcore match by any means or any death match by any means, but I think it's going to be a slugfest. Like, Manders hits hard, I hit hard, and it's going to be real fun. So. And,
yeah,
I typically I don't usually play the role as the bad guy, except for at Rugged. So, like, this is going to be really fun.
Yeah, well, like I said, when this one got announced, that was kind of one that made me go, God, I really don't want to miss that show. My rule of thumb with my wife has kind of always been, hey, you want to do these shows, it's fine. Try not to be gone 2 weekends in a row. And I was just at Absolute Pro this past weekend. But it just so happens we're back in Marshalltown for Easter. So I asked my father, I'm like, hey, you want to go to wrestling with me? And my father-in-law agreed. So I was like, all right, that was my way out because this was the one that I did not want to miss. Because, yeah, you two hit extremely hard. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys can do.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very hard-hitting, a big hoss fight. I think, Manders can go. And, at the tender age of 35, I can still kind of go. So we'll see what happens.
I'm gonna go ahead.
I think right now I think I'm on like the kind of the downward slope of wrestling career as we speak. So I kind of want to get all these, matches that I want to get in before like my body starts hurting too bad. So
right.
I'm really excited for this one.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and run down a couple of the matches here, and then we'll kind of get more into things here with this, because it has been a while since I've had you in the show, so I want to give people a refresh on the man behind Bo Gott here. And, we're starting off every year we do with the Rugged Mania pre-show. We have the Zach Grigg Memorial Battle Royal. Those who don't know, Zach Grigg and I started this podcast way back in 2010, believe it or not, and he's the reason I became an independent pro wrestling fan, and he was one of the biggest supporters of independent pro wrestling, and he passed away in 2020. Austin Faust wanted to do something special for him, even though it's kind of a rib on him in his afterlife because Greg hated battle royals. So from that perspective, it's kind of a little rib on him, but at the same time, it's kind of a fun way to always bring back his memory. And we've had the Rugged Pro Zach Grigg Memorial Battle Royal every year for Rugged Mania. So it's a nice way to kind of just remember our fallen friend here, and a good way to get the show started. And again, I feel like this show is one of their better Rugged Manias that they've had lined up. We got also the Rise to the Top ladder match. We've kind of had that at every Rugged Mania, I feel like, the last several years. Theron Edwards versus Gavin Parker versus Ethan Everhart versus Donnie Pepper Cricket. Donnie Pepper Cricket in a ladder match is something I never thought I'd see, but here we are in 2024. We have Big Beasley and Jackson King as well in that matchup. We have Nino Hatchett versus Dion Roosman. We have Reginald Fairfield versus Marley, and we have Kit Sackett versus Ken Anderson. Yes, that Ken Anderson from WWE and TNA and everywhere else you can think of. And that one is for the Heritage Championship. So those are just a few of the matches we have scheduled for this coming weekend. And remember, card is always subject to change. I always have to throw that out there. So, but
Yeah.
so you brought in a little interesting point. You talked about how you're kind of winding down or kind of thinking about winding down your career in professional wrestling, man. Let's go back to the very beginning for those who don't know and kind of talk about where you got your start at and how you got into this crazy business of professional wrestling.
So back in 2008, I started with Central Empire Wrestling. I started training with Austin Bayless. And then I, would continually work a lot of CEW shows, and I'd work there was a company in Muscatine called MXWA that Chief Atakula Kula would run, and another company called APW, which was Adrenaline Pro Wrestling out in Milo. So, and then about a year and a half in, I got hooked up with Jason Strife. I wrestled him on like a backyard show that would used to run before the CEW shows, and he really took a liking to me and took me under his wing, and I got a lot of experience being able to be under the tutelage of Jason Strife. So I always tell promoters that my trainers were Austin Bayless and Jason Strife. So yeah, and then I would just continuously work from 2008 to probably 2018. I took some time off in 2016 for my son being born and being a brand new father, and that wrestling itch would come back. So I would go back, and then I took about 3 years off from 2018 to 2021. Just family stuff. My son was diagnosed with autism, so I felt like I needed to kind of step up my parenting duties at that point. So, but I have a really good support system, and so that's allowed me to wrestle from 2021 till now. But so off and on, I've been wrestling since 2008. I've wrestled for IWA Mid-South. I've wrestled for Juggalo Championship Wrestling. I've wrestled, from Minnesota to Texas to North Dakota to Ohio. So, and everywhere in between.
Now, what was it about this crazy world of professional wrestling that you, as a youngster, kind of thought one day, hey, maybe I could do that as I got older? Because obviously, especially here in Iowa, as we got older, it got more and more easier to find places to find wrestling schools. So, what was it about wrestling that made you think, hey, I could really do this?
So this is how I explained it to my girlfriend. I am a nice guy who likes violence. My dad got me into wrestling about 2 or 3. So I was watching like Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan and all that. But my dad also really enjoyed like the very nitty gritty pro wrestling, the blood and guts stuff. So like, I think that's kind of what attracted me. And like, I think I'm somewhat like of a psychopath a little bit. But I'm saying this joke. But I just like the raw, and if you can make me feel like it's real, then that's what I like. So that's what really got me into pro wrestling. So I was a huge Attitude Era kid. I really enjoyed ECW. And then I got into deathmatch wrestling at a very young age. Like I would watch XPW, CZW, anything I could find. Like my mom would always tell me if there was a subject in professional wrestling in school, I would ace it every time, because that was just an encyclopedia of knowledge. And I still kind of am. A little bit's kind of gone here and there. I just enjoy the realism and just the baby face comeback. And I just like, just watching 2 guys beat each other up. Like I can't understand it. I think I'm kind of wired differently. But that's what I enjoy about pro wrestling. I love the nitty gritty blood and guts.
Well, let's face it. I mean, us being in wrestling, we all kind of have to be wired a little bit differently anyway.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny. So I'm sitting there the other day listening to the Strictly Business Pod with Eric Bischoff and John Alba, and they were talking about WrestleMania 2 and all this multiple locations. And Eric's like, they were trying to figure out which locations they were all in, and me being me, because I have that useless knowledge in my head, I just rattled them off. The next thing I know, Eric goes, "If you have that kind of information off the top of your head, I don't know what to tell you. There's so much more room." And I'm like,
I
it's
mean,
like
we
I
all
can't
enjoy
remember.
what we.
It's like I can't barely remember what I had for lunch, but you asked me a main event from WrestleMania 40 something years ago, and I can rattle it off the top of my tongue.
Yeah, I mean that part of my memory, like especially with like possible concussions that I've had, like that part of my memory is starting to kind of like slip away a little bit. But like, uh, I mean, I still watch wrestling. I mean, I just watched GCW this weekend. I also wrestled at Magnum Pro this weekend too. So, uh, which was really fun. It was a really fun show. Other than Jay Fowler kicking me in the ding dong, but
Well, if you were watching GCW, I assume you were doing some tape study on your opponent, one called Manders, here this weekend.
I don't think he was on that show actually. So
Okay, I didn't. Yeah,
maybe I don't know.
I didn't get a chance to tune in and see if he was on. I just know it feels like he's on them every weekend. It feels like. I mean, he's kind of
Yeah,
become a staple for them.
he's so busy. Like I'm
Yeah,
kind of like I'm really surprised Rugged got him this weekend
right.
because I've been trying to get Fouts to book me against Manders for like the last 2 years. So,
Well,
but I'm really excited. Plus, he just did Germany not too like earlier this month, I think. So like, I mean, Manders is all over, man. Like, I remember I wrestled on a show with him back in like maybe 2017, 2018, and he went to Iowa. And I had a mutual friend that went to Iowa, Tyler Sapp, and I brought that up to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I think he graduated a little bit before my time." And I'm like, yeah, I forget how old I am sometimes. So,
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Again, that match is going down this weekend in Marshalltown, Iowa. Bo Gott versus the one called Manders. Again, like you said, it's not really gonna be a hardcore match or anything, but anybody that knows you two knows you guys both hit hard. And I know Manders is putting up his Iowa championship title on the line for that matchup as well. And again, if you guys
oh,
haven't,
is he?
yes, it's an Iowa
I have
championship matchup. So there you go.
I did not get this notification, so I might
At
I
lea-
might have to fight a little hard.
at least this was on the card info that Fouts sent me. So again, card is always subject to change, but that's on the card info that I got from Fouts here earlier. So if it's
Oh,
on
thank
there,
you,
I'm
Fouts. He doesn't like to play my entrance music half the time, and now he doesn't like to inform me that this is a title match. So, or it could have
Now,
just been on the flyer and I just missed it. So,
so you love the moniker, Deathmatch Daddy, as you've been well known here for the last couple years. Do you have a favorite personal death match that you've seen? It can be old time death matches or even some newer death matches. Do you have like a favorite one that sticks out?
uh, I don't know anything like with Danny Havoc in it. Danny Havoc was like my all-time favorite death match wrestler. Like even like in the last couple of years with GCW, there's been so many good death matches. Like it's evolved from like the hack and slash stuff to the like we're gonna go in there and we're gonna work and then we're gonna incorporate these weapons instead of just using weapons, which is great. I love that. I can't think off the top of my head which one has been my favorite so far. There's been a few of mine that like I wrestled the Carver at mid death. That was very fun. And that was everything I wanted to be. It's the first time I ever got to use light tubes. Um, and like I said, my brain's wired differently. So every time I hear like glass break or like one of those bulbs pop, like I just like it just gets my adrenaline going. So and then I wrestled Orn Bite last year in June, and that would probably be my most favorite death match I've ever been in. That was like 23 minutes, and I took an assault driver off a stage through a pop can door. So, so those were like the two of my favorites that I've been in. I think just anything with like Danny Havoc, uh, like Schlack's one of my favorite ones to watch too. So I'm kind of all over the place. Like it just kind of depends on kind of who's in it. So
Well, that's great because you actually answered my next question. I was going to ask what are some of the favorite ones that you've been in, but you've rattled off quite a few. And again, if you're looking for some good death matches, I'm sure you can find a good chunk of those on YouTube. And it's kind of crazy to me, and I feel like GCW played a really big role in this. I feel like death matches, especially kind of ever since even a little before COVID, you can kind of feel it starting to gain some momentum, but really even kind of post COVID, it seems like deathmatch trend has really picked up across the states here. It's just something that people have really taken a liking to here.
And I think it's just, the guys that do it, it's just, like I said, it's just not hack and slash anymore. It's, it's incorporating the weapons in the match instead of making the weapons the main. So, and, ICW really helped with deathmatch wrestling when COVID happened. And, you could still run shows, but they had to be very limited. And I mean, people were busting their butts. Matt Tremont's another one of my favorite death wrestlers as well. He, like, his body of work is second to none. That's why he's like the top American deathmatch guy. Like, in my opinion.
Well, and I gotta ask you too, because you had mentioned earlier you finally got to do a match. I think you said last year where you got to use light tubes. What was that feeling like for you, like finally taking that first shot from a light tube? Because I see you guys do that stuff. I'm like you said, you're wired differently, so I kind of know what's kind of going through your mind when you finally take that first shot, and you just what's going through your mind.
I mean, it hurts. Like, as soon as that glass breaks, it cuts you. So, but it just kind of got my adrenaline going. Like when I start bleeding, I turn into a completely different person. So, or even like in the wrestling ring in general, I'm a completely different person. But as soon as I start bleeding, I think it just brings out like a warrior spirit in you, which may sound corny, but it just brings out this like other side. And like my senses are heightened. Like I go crazier, and it's just like, but when the light tube hits you, you're getting it, whether you want to or not. And then, but like, it also burns too. Like when you get hit and that light tube shatters, it burns. Like it feels like a really bad sun. So.
So another thing I gotta ask too, because I know you said you have a great support system there, and I know I met your girlfriend at the Bridge City Slam show last year. What was her first reaction watching you in a death match for the first time, or does she refuse to watch?
So she did go to the very first mid death show, and she absolutely hates it. She hates how much like I beat myself up and how much I get beat up, and she hates it when I bleed. And but I mean, she's still around, so she must love me. So, but she is very supportive in that fact. Like we have, between the three of us, we have 3 kids. So, our daughter just got done with AAU volleyball. So, uh, but yeah, she's very supportive, and she gives me shit whenever I do these death matches, but she never. So.
So when you're out here driving, from show to show, obviously you guys are putting in all the kinds of miles, whether it be a couple hours here in Iowa, whether it be 4 hours or whatever to Omaha, maybe. What do you guys usually listen to the car, or who do you like to travel with most out of all the time that you've been involved in all this?
If I'm by myself, I'm a huge nerd too. So if I'm by myself, I usually play like live play podcasts of like Dungeons and Dragons and Delta Green, because usually those episodes are like 2-3 hours long, so it makes my car ride that much shorter for me. If I'm in the car with some people, usually we have the music turned off. Before he kicked me in the ding dong, I used to ride a lot with Jay Fowler. Whenever I go to Magnum, I'll go with Jeremy Hall, and Jay Fowler, and Jackson King. So we're usually the 4 people in the car, and then some of the time the family comes. So if the kids are in the car, we listen to whatever music they want to listen to. And if it's Taylor Swift, I'm usually singing along with it. So.
Hey, nothing wrong with that, man. I ain't gonna give you shit for that one. So that's all right in my book.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So again, we talked
So.
about some of your favorite deathmatch people, some of your favorite deathmatch matches. Let's kind of talk about non-death matches here and kind of talk about, obviously you've been around the independent scene for quite some time. Who are some of your favorites that you really enjoy watching that are out there kind of busting their ass right now?
So like, as much as I love Joey Janela on Twitter and wrestling. Joey Janela is one of the guys that I really like to watch. My favorite wrestler right now is Effie, and then Bussy with Alley Catch. So they're about my favorites to watch right. So main, I don't really get to watch a whole lot of AEW and WWE. So I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm always going to be a huge Chuck Taylor fan and Orange Cassidy. So I think those 4 or 5 that I just named off. Yeah, I don't really get to watch a whole lot of wrestling.
And how about for some of those guys and gals maybe that are busting their ass here on the Iowa scene? Because again, like I said, we're hitting the end of March, and we just had however many different promotions running a show each weekend here. So obviously, there's a ton of talent right here in our home state.
Zay and Jackson King are really finding it.
Yep.
Zay K47, I love him like with all my heart. So he's really turned around, because I had one of his first like 5 matches, and to see what he was then back in 2021 till now, like he's completely done a 180. Like he looks good, he's wrestling hard. Jackson King's putting in a lot of work too. Those 2 guys, like young guys, like have really busted their butts. I wrestled Cole Cannon in at Madhouse Wrestling. I really like Cole, so Cole's another one. And then on the Nebraska side, the Crucible, Brixton Nash and Jameson McGregor, Nino Hatchet, and then Brandon Nitro from North Dakota or South Dakota. He's one of my favorite ones to watch too. So I mean, wrestling in Iowa and wrestling in Nebraska and wrestling in all these different places, like it really opens my eyes to see like, okay, who's coming up, because I was one of those guys at a certain point in my career. So I think wrestling in Iowa and Nebraska is in very good hands, even after.
And I kind of felt like that right even before we were headed towards COVID. We had all these promotions that were running, again, what seemed like weekly, and then COVID hit, everybody kind of shut down, and I was kind of worried that we weren't ever going to get back to what it was. And thankfully, now we have, where, like I said, everybody's pretty much running the show every weekend. And like you said, you see the amount of talent that we can have. Like we're at a point where we have a company running in Waterloo, and we can have a company running in Knoxville on the same night, and both companies have more than enough talent to bring in. And yeah, it's just both quality of wrestling is there. And yeah, it's a lot of fun to be a wrestling fan right now in Iowa.
It is, because like when I first started in 2008, it was just 3XW, IPW, and CEW. Like,
Yep.
And like back then, like there was like a weird like beef between the 3 companies.
It was so weird.
Like,
Greg and I would talk about that all the time. We're like, can't these guys just get along?
I know, but like, I mean, I understand at a certain point too, because we're all kind of running in like the same, like our vicinity, or we were. And like, I'm kind of glad to see, like, I'm really glad to see like people starting to get together. Because if I think the only way to build up the Iowa scene in general is if everybody works together.
Yep.
And it's, it shouldn't have to be like a battle to, fight on your own. Like, we're all doing what we love to do. So, why wouldn't you want to see like a guy that normally doesn't wrestle in like Madhouse come to Madhouse from like CEW or Magnum, or and there's enough work for everybody now, which is nice. I'm kind of on the older side of things, so like I really like to see these young guys get these opportunities that I didn't.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and yeah, that I totally remember all that going on back in the early days, and yeah, Greg and I would talk about that all the time because again, we as wrestling fans, it's like there's enough, especially wrestling fans, there's enough wrestling fans to go around for everybody. It doesn't matter what part of Iowa you're located in, so it's kind of nice to see everybody on really friendly terms with each other, and yeah, again, it's just great to see so many different companies thriving right now, and I'm going to go ahead here and we're going to run down the rest of the remaining matches going on at Rugged Mania this coming Saturday night, Marshalltown, Iowa. We have the tag team title matchup for the Rugged Pro tag team titles. We have the team of Supernova versus the team of the Crucible, two of your favorite guys that you had just mentioned a little bit ago. We have a triple threat women's matchup, which I'm really looking forward to this one. These are three of the best females that we have in the Midwest right now. We have Shazza McKenzie, we have Sierra, and we have Maggie Lee getting ready to throw it down this Saturday night in Rugged Pro Wrestling. And then we have the RPW Heavyweight Championship matchup. Jay Fowler defending his title against the Monster Angus. So again, just a
I hope he loses,
really,
by the way.
yeah, a really stacked card here this Saturday for Rugged Pro Wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that Jay Fowler guy loses.
I was just gonna ask you,
I'm
especially after he hit you in the ding-a-ling this past weekend, huh?
yeah, I really hope Angus just squashes.
Yeah, it's
But you said something about Donnie Hepburn being in a ladder match.
yes.
Sorry, I have very I was just in a match with Donnie Hepburn last year. So I mean
So it's kind of
he's in those ladder matches, so
yeah. It's kind of like his he does one ladder match a year type of thing then.
yeah, last year for Rugged Mania, I did a ladder match in Omaha the night before, and then I was in the ladder match the next night at Rugged Mania last year. So he's doing it smart. He's not doing two in a row.
Yeah. Absolutely. So again, if you guys want tickets for the show this coming weekend, head over to Rugged Pro Wrestling's Facebook page. There is a link that you can click on and get tickets right now. I believe general admission right now is only like $8. I think it goes up to 15 or something like that the day of the show. So if you guys want a little bit of a discount on the tickets, now is the time to grab them. Otherwise, tickets will be available at the door, and it's going to be a really fun night. Again, Bo Gott, Manders. I mean, I can't say enough about what I expect out of you two, and it's just a really exciting time right now to be a wrestling fan, man. And if you are getting ready to wind it down, that's for me as a Bo Gott fan, and you know how much I love it, man. I've told you that from every time we see each other, and it's gonna be a little bit bittersweet, you know. It's but I get it. We get older and things happen, but I'm excited to see you kick some ass, and I'm actually taking my father-in-law with me to the show too, so I'm excited to have him see you two kick some ass.
Hell yeah! I mean, I'm got a good like couple years left. Couple years go, but those couple of fast.
So excellent, man. And if people do want to kind of follow along with you and follow along with your journey, do you have any kind of social medias that people can follow you at?
You can follow my it's just Bo Gott. Try not to add my personal page, please. I have like 3,000 friends, and like 3/4 of those are wrestling fans. So if you go show some love to the fan page, I'd appreciate it. There is X, I guess now, because I'm old and I still refer to it as Twitter. It's Bo Gott GMB. Instagram is just Brian. You can follow me there on that. And then when I get making TikToks, my TikTok is Brian Gott.
All right, guys, there you have it from the man himself. Catch him in action this coming Saturday for Rugged Pro Wrestling Rugged Mania. Tickets are on sale now. If we don't see you at the show, hope we will see you next time right here on the World Wide Web.